Well, it's been said that you're the Ted Lasso of the fly fishing world. Is it
Wow.
true that you have tiny, I believe, posters taped inside the lid of your fly boxes?
Who told you that?
Do that.
That was something that I thought I'd shared in confidence. So apparently my secret is out, Matthew.
It is. But no, seriously, I believe you are the only person I know that irons their fishing shirts.
Oh, come
Like,
on, come on.
no, I really every time I see a picture of you, I'm like, that guy is so incredibly clean on the wall. Like, I don't know that you've ever had dirt under your fingernails. It's mind blowing. You just look so stinking clean. I can't go to the
Gosh.
river without getting super filthy. So, what's your secret there? What's going on there?
Now listen, I do have secrets. I mean, is that how we're starting this podcast? I
That
have
is
to give
how I'm
out all
starting
my
this, dude.
secrets right at the beginning. I mean, you're going for all my good stuff. No, listen, number one, I completely disagree. I am not that clean. I like to appear tidy, let's put it that way. But if you want a secret, this is a secret. So your listeners, listen up. And this is something I actually share with all the guests who take my trips. You know, I host all these trips around the world, and there's all these people who go to these trips with me. We're in Iceland, Alaska, blah blah blah. We're having a great time, and I always say to them, like, everybody wants that hero shot. They want that picture of the Atlantic salmon. They're holding it up. You know, they want to relive that moment for the next decade or however many years. And there is nothing worse whenever I look back at some of my pictures that I took like 15 years ago or 10 years ago. And, you know, it's a rainy day, just, you know, that inclement weather. You're over in Iceland, it's windy, and you have like your sweater on, your vest on, your fishing pack on, and then you have that big insulated jacket. And when I look at these pictures, it just reminds me of like the Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters in the 80s. So the one secret tip that I have, which is probably why you think I'm staying clean, is that, you know, once you have landed that fish, you talk to the guide, you talk to your friend, you make sure the water's cold enough, keep the fish in the net, take off your coat, get a nice, you know, kind of a
Oh,
cinematic
layers.
background. Yeah, unlayer. I always take my fishing vest off. That's probably why you probably haven't noticed that. I never have a vest or a pack on in those images because I take it all off, which
There you
is
go.
also, you know,
Pre-production, pre-production, and
absolutely. I
post-production.
mean, we use a lot of these images for like magazines and stuff
That's
like
right.
that. I mean, from that professional side of fly fishing. So there's the secret. Take off
I
your
got you, man.
insulated and your rain jackets, and you're gonna look like me. You're gonna look like you have
All
a
right, man.
clean
You're like,
fishing shirt that's been ironed underneath.
man, no, I really
Perfect.
do believe you very well may be the hardest working man in this business. Uh, I come from a commercial photo background, so I know, and I've fooled around with audio through the years. I understand the time and money invested in your production level that you do, and I see you at shows. You're an author, you're a speaker, travel host, a middle school teacher, not a high stress job, a fly tying teacher, YouTuber for 15 years now, and you're a dad and husband. Like, how do you find time to tie for yourself, let alone fish?
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I That's a really good question. As you say all this stuff, I'm thinking, wow, I really do all that. So thank you for recognizing it because I know I'm one of the few people in fly fishing that probably do the amount of things that I do, and it's not my day job. So that's which is not my secret to success. But I think the secret is I am a teacher, and you know, our lives are run by that clock. Like we have to have our classes ending at that precise moment because your entire team has a switch and you know everything's rotating around that clock and that time and that minute. So knowing that, I kind of run my life that way as well. I'm not going to say like my family's in this box and my, you know, my hosted trips are over here and my fly tying's here.
Mm.
It's not like that. But anything that I do it very intentionally. And I'm a very big fan of those to-do lists, you know, except I use
Mhm.
notes. I'm part of the Apple family, if you want to call it that. And I have
Yep.
like a MacBook and an iMac and a iPhone I just looked at. And that notes button is probably my most used app of anything. And I am very clear on like what's my to-do list, but more importantly, what's important in my life, like what's essential that I have to get done. Like tonight before this podcast, like, you know, it was dinner with my family, it was hanging out, it was kind of vegging out. My son wanted to play a little Fortnite, so I wanted to hang out with him, and not to my wife's chagrin, by the way. But my other secret, this is my other secret sauce, is you know I'm lucky. My wife loves to fly fish too, So whenever we're
Yeah.
thinking about doing this stuff, like we're going to Costa Rica next month, like that's a fishing trip. Like we don't have like vacations that don't revolve around fishing. So, but thank you. I appreciate that you recognize that hard work.
Yeah. So you kind of jumped ahead to my next question, which was, uh, what principles or practices you follow to kind of get dialed in life, and what life hacks are there for us mere mortals. So like, notes is your app.
Notes is my app. I mean, there's just something that's nice about it. You can also, I found out recently, you can pin the important ones near the top. So, like
Mm.
obviously I saw you at some of the fly fishing shows. Like before every fly fishing show, I have a notes app that's just my fly fishing show packing list. So everything that I need for that show is it's in that list. And I also, years ago, I used to be very critical of myself. Like if I didn't have everything I needed and it wasn't like the perfect list, I was pretty upset. And I've kind of since changed that. I also understand how reality works when you have life revolving around you. And I'm now kind of a big believer that, whatever I did this year, I'm going to make sure it's better next year. And if I did miss something, that's okay. Add it to the list. What can come off that list as well? And, I'm constantly refining processes, even like, at these shows, I give these presentations in the featured room, either as a featured tire or as a featured presenter. And sometimes I'll see the same people who saw my presentation at the symposium in November. They'll see me in Edison at the same topic, and then they'll come to the Lancaster show, and I'll walk in. I'm setting up my, my projector and my PowerPoint and all that stuff, and I'll look and I'll say like, why are you in the second row? Like you've seen this presentation twice. And the people that have been following me for years, they'll say to me, well, we know you've changed it every time. Like we know what we
Yeah.
saw in November was different than January, and it's going to be different than the one you're about to present in March, because that's just who I am. So I love to just refine and make things better.
So maybe we can go back and call you the Bob Dylan of fly fishing, because
Wait, I'm
every
missing
time,
this
man,
one.
it's
I love
different.
Dylan.
Every time it's different. You sound better. I can
Is it?
understand everything you've said clearly,
That's
and I'm a Dylan
microphone.
fan.
Oh, I love Dylan too. I was just listening to Highway 61 before I jumped on.
Nice, nice. Um, let's. You mind if we take a few calls?
No,
We
I'd
had
love
we
to.
had some
This is
folks
exciting.
call in, and so yeah, we got a handful here. So here we go.
Hey, this is Ben from Greenville, and I was calling to ask. I've been fishing my whole life, but I just got a new vise, and I would love to get your suggestions of where to start. I have no clue. So any suggestions you have would be great. Thank you.
Wow. Well,
Wow.
first of all, I love this idea of taking phone calls like this. Really, really clever. Well, Ben, thank you for calling in. Welcome to Fly Tying. If no one has formally welcomed you, let me be the first. And whenever it comes to new tires, there's a learning curve, just like anything in life. Whenever I think about like where do you start, it sounds like you've already been fly fishing. So you can open your fly box right now. I would say look through your fly box and say to yourself, what's that one fly that you use the most often? It might be a woolly bugger, it might be a pheasant tail, it might be a dry fly, it might be a mop fly. I don't know, like whichever one. And I would do a little bit of homework on that, research that fly, go to your local fly shop, shoot Matthew or me an email and get the materials and the tools that you need for just that fly and become proficient at it. So I think too often people get the advice, tie a woolly bugger, tie a mop fly, and we have this progression you're expected to follow. But at times, whenever you follow that, this generic progression, there with flies that you may not fish and have confidence in. And there's nothing worse than tying 6 dozen of this fly that everyone told you got to tie, and you put them in your box and you look at them every time you're in the water and you say, I don't think that's going to work. And you might fish it, but you're not going to fish it with confidence. So I would, get very proficient with tying that fly that you fish the most often. Make sure that when you put it in your box, it looks like the ones that you would fish, because some people are going to say, I'm going to fish it no matter what. And others, they want it a little bit more precise. They want it to look like they would buy it at a fly shop or online. So determine what type of person you are, become proficient with that fly. And then once you're comfortable with that, say, all right, now I learned this pheasant tail. Like the next fly I want to learn is the blowtorch by Devin Olson, and then go out and buy those materials. And then, just let your imagination and creativity run loose. But also, you're probably not going to save any money tying flies. I'm sure you know that, but I want to also let you know that up front. Welcome to your new addiction.
That's right. It's very well answered. All right, here's another.
Hey, this is Dan in South Carolina. I just want to call in and ask, what's y'all's go-to confidence fly? You know, you're just in a rough spot, not catching anything, and just need something to get you out of that rut. What are you going to? Thanks.
Ooh, I
For
love
me,
confidence
that's
flies.
that's just a Clouser. A very I like the small Clousers. There's actually a bonefish. I think it's called a bonefish Roxy Clouser. It's like a tan and
Yeah.
brown with white and then red eyes. There's literally nothing that won't eat it. So
Now let me ask you this, Matthew. Are we talking trout? Are we talking bass? Like
Hey,
that's the question. He didn't really give us
and
that.
didn't
Like,
specify.
no,
That's why
we're
I
talking
said Clouser because I can fish it on. I've caught bluegill, catfish, uh, trout, bass, everything with it. So that's mine.
I mean, if we're talking that approach, I can give like 5 flies. This is tricky. Can I give 4? Can I do that? Can
go
I give
for it,
4?
man.
All right. Number 1, I love woolly buggers, but the version I tie is called the black jig bugger. It's like a long marabou tail. You got a lot of movement in there. It's got this like UV style body on a jig hook, big, like 4mm, sometimes larger tungsten bead. I like it. That silver bead, black body. I mean, you can't go wrong with a black bugger. So I'm just going to say that's probably going to catch a lot of different styles of fish for you. If I'm thinking like dry flies, because I'm a trout guy, I love a fly called the X Caddis. It's a Craig Matthews pattern. It's been around for decades. It's got a beautiful like deer hair compared on wings, some CDC underwing, tightly dubbed body, and it's got a trailing shuck because it's to represent an emerging caddis, something that's vulnerable on the surface. So I love that for a dry fly. For a nymph, man, there are so many. I want to say like pheasant tail or waltz worms or blowtorch or paragon, but my confidence fly is this fly called the France fly. It's kind of like a poor man's paragon. It's tied really, really slender, so it can get down in a hurry. It looks like a blueing olive or a small black nymph. It could look like a caddis fly larva. It could look like a mayfly nymph. It looks a little bit like everything. It's just my wife has caught sea run brown trout on it before. So it's the France fly. It's not the Frenchie. It's called the France fly. That's a confidence nymph. And then to kind of piggyback what you're saying, I don't know what your opinion is of this fly. I think we could talk about this the entire podcast. I am just addicted to those Blaine chocolate game changers. I mean, the feather changers, especially. There's something about those. Give me one in all black, give me a white one, give me an olive one. And I feel like I can catch so many different fish out there.
I can't. I always tell people when I pull those out of my box, the handful that I've tied, I call them the name changer because it's just so ugly. And it's like, nah, man, I ain't got time to mess with that. But yeah. But yeah, it's incredible.
You can
fly.
buy them.
I
think Flymen, they sell those. You can buy a couple. You're not losing game changers. You know what I mean? Like that's a fly. If you snag that in a tree, you better climb that tree and get out.
25-pound mono on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, incredible fly for sure. By the way, you when you first were talking, something sparked in my brain, and I was going to ask you, did you happen to talk to the guys next to us at Denver show, Hogfish? You ever looked at their stuff, man?
I saw their stuff while I was talking to you, and unfortunately, I didn't have
It's unbelievable. I don't think they're going to be.
Go ahead.
They're not going to be at the PA show. But I think it's hogfish.com, HAWG, like you from the South, even though they're from Idaho. Hogfish.com. Materials are unbelievable. It's all synthetics, but they had some stuff that was just mind blowing. So anyway, a little plug for those guys. Really rad stuff.
Next year.
That'd be great on that on that bugger you were talking about.
Yeah.
Some UV in there. All right, here's another.
Hey, my name is Kevin Kegley from Traveler's Rest, and been a fisherman all my life thanks to my dad. And thanks to my dad, I take my boys fishing. So we've got 3 generations of Kegleys on the banks. Interested in fly tying with my youngest, who shows some aptitude towards that. He's already tried to do it on his own, but I was just wondering what you might recommend as far as equipment to maybe create a little duo table or something where we both can set up and tie some flies and chew some fat. Interested in your thoughts. Thanks.
Awesome. Kevin's a old friend from a previous life when I worked at Apple, and his son fished with one of our guides this year, and I think he hooked about a 9-pound largie. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. It's a good way to ruin you on the first guided trip.
Well,
All right.
Listen, first,
Go ahead.
let's go back to what Kevin said, though. I mean, I think it's super cool. Like, his father's his mentor. I think many of us can connect with that. So I love that aspect. And I love that he's kind of passing it on with his son, and he wants to tie with his son. So I think that's super cool. What was he asking for, Matthew? Was he talking about what tools to buy? I wasn't quite sure what his question was there.
Yeah, I think he was trying to get to like he was saying, like, if both of them were tying together.
Yeah.
I think that's where, you're going to need 2 vices for sure.
Yeah.
Well, maybe. But the rest of the tools you can pretty much share for a while, like, I don't know. I'll defer to you, but I would just think good pair of scissors, whip finisher, vice.
Yeah, I mean the basic tools. I mean,
bottom over there.
I'll give a little plug for my website real quick if that's allowed.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think, kind of getting back to Kevin's question, when it comes to fly tying tools, that's a really tricky one, because I know some people who, whatever their first pair of fly tying scissors was, they're still using those 2 decades later, where there's others that I feel like they'll buy a new pair every year just because they like gadgets and tools and things like that. So it's also tricky without knowing Kevin, kind of to say which direction do you want to go. But I think when we talk about the basics, we have things like our fly tying vise, we have scissors, we have a bobbin for our thread, maybe a whip finisher, a half hitch tool. And then after that, we can start to integrate other tools in as we need them based on the type of fly. The reason I said I'll give a little plug for my website, I get tons of emails on a regular basis asking about fly tying tools. And I kept finding myself sending the same email over and over and over. And I was going to write a little blog about this. Then I thought, no, this is like more than that. So I've been working on a new, I'll call it a hub on my website, which is troutandfeathered.com. And I just changed the headings. We're talking like 2 weeks before this podcast was recorded. And one of my new, my new top, what do you want to call it, headings, is the word learn. And when you click on learn, I have something called a fly tying guide. Through my fly tying guide, I'm building individual, I don't think of it like a wheel. And I have all these different, these spokes on the wheel. So the guide is the hub. And within that wheel, one of them is fly tying tools. So I just I just released this maybe a week ago, this exact page on which tools I recommend out there. Though, and you and I obviously know a little bit about scissors and those Rambler scissors and the beautiful vise and all of that stuff. My one suggestion I really stress with many fly tyers, again, knowing, how much you wanting to spend, but there's this motto in life, and the motto goes, buy once, cry once. So my recommendation is, if you're between two tools and you're serious about this, I tend to say get the better one, because there is nothing worse than seeing someone in one of my fly tying classes and they're like, Tim, you made that look so easy. And part of me wants to say, well, that's because I've been doing this for 35 years. But then I pick up the tool they're trying to use and I'm not proficient with it, not because I'm not comfortable, but because it's not a quality tool. So that's the one thing I caution people. Like, there's a reason certain brands have made it, and it's not because they have, they're good at marketing. It's because they make quality stuff.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's a killer answer. He is an awesome fine artist. I just happen to know that. So, Kevin, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you come up with, because it's going to be nuts, I'm sure.
Love that.
Can't wait to see that come to fruition, buddy. All right.
You said this is hold on. This is your former life. I heard Apple in there. What's
yeah, we worked
in
at an Apple retail store together for 4 years or something long ago. So, yeah. And now I never want to answer another iPhone question.
Do you still have an iPhone?
I do. I still have a full Apple ecosystem, but I really hate technology now, and I would rather just not ever touch it all again, even though I'm doing this.
Yeah.
All right. We got one last one here.
Hey, Tim, this is Ben Johnson from Austin, Texas. I had a couple questions for you. One is, what is one thing you wish someone had told you when you were first starting out tying? Is there any tips or tricks that you wish somebody had told you that you had discovered later on? And two, what is something that teaching fly tying has helped you in your own fly tying? How has teaching fly tying helped you become a better fly tyer? Thanks. Hope to hear the answers. Bye.
Ooh, Ben's got some good questions. He's making us think here. The tips one. Okay, that's a really cool one. I actually I'm putting together a little social media post about this, and I have a few things that I've learned over the years. And I would say one of the biggest tips. I'll just come up with a couple real quick ones off the top of my head. Something I wish somebody would have told me early on, and I'm not going to say they didn't. I think you and I both know this, Matthew. Somebody told us, we just didn't listen very well, and it was that keep your thread away from your hook eye until the last possible instance. And I can go back in time where I had tied these beautiful dry flies. They were beautiful to me. I put a lot of time and effort into them, and I got out to the stream that day, and I was fishing throughout the day, doing a little nymphing, throwing some streamers, and then the hatch came off, and these fish started rising, and I was just this is the moment. I had waited to see this type of hatch happen in central Pennsylvania. And it was getting kind of to a low light situation. And I grabbed one of these dry flies I tied just for this moment. And I'm trying to put my 5X or my whatever size tippet through the eye, and it's not going through. And I keep jamming it. And I'm like, that's weird. Something's wrong with my tippet. So I cut my tippet, tie on a new piece of tippet, put it on, like it's not going through. So I grab another fly, and same thing. And if I had a flashlight with me, which would have been smart as well, I didn't have a flashlight, I would have known that there's no way I could have got tippet in there. There's the hook eye was just, it was non-existent. It was completely covered. So now I'm a very big proponent of, like, whenever you start your thread, keep it away from your hook eye. Start at least 2 or 3 hook eyes back, put on all of your tail, your abdomen, your wing, your thorax, or whatever. And then, unless you need to, have a gradual taper at your hook eye for some reason, or that you're not, otherwise, just don't even go anywhere near that hook eye until you're whip finished. Do a clean whip finish, trim your thread, and move on with life. Because, man, that was a really frustrating moment that I just can relive it right now, Matt.
I relive it pretty frequently because like I said, I'm a pretty terrible tire especially when it comes to dries. So I love to crowd an eye. That's what happens.
It's not just you. I think it's most of us. And what was the other question? Was it what I noticed from teaching others?
I think kind of what you've picked up from teaching that said maybe you've been able to apply to yourself.
Oh man, I think
like
that's
maybe
really
an aha moment. Now this Ben is a really smart guy. He's got a company called Good Drift. I know him too.
I would say I'll give you something that I picked up recently. It was, at the fly fishing show, I'm very fortunate. I'm able to teach some of these private classes. So people come to the show, then maybe before the show starts on, we'll say Saturday morning, they will take a private class, and that it's a little bit more expensive, but it's a small group. We're talking like 8 to 10 people. And then that will also cover their admission for that day. And it really gives us a chance to sit down, and sometimes the classes revolve around the fly fishing concept. Sometimes it's casting, and sometimes it's fly tying. And I taught this class last year. I'll never forget this. There were wonderful people. I've met so many great people in these classes. And this one guy showed up. He was all over the place, and he opens his fly box, and he shows me the flies. And he had literally tied, I think, every fly that I'd featured in my new book, Tying Euro Nymphs. But it wasn't that he just tied them. They were immaculate. Like they were easily nicer than the ones that I was tying. Like at that moment, I was like, oh my, like, why are you in my class, man? Like I was just, and I didn't have that insecurity or anything like that, but I was just like, man, why would this guy take my class? And I even kind of questioned it. And one of the other students was like, well, I'm sure he can learn something from you, Tim. Can he? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm looking right. He looks pretty good. And then like, obviously like the teacher side of me, like kicked in, like, wait a second, like, look at this from a two-sided approach. Number one, while we're tying today, I'm going to pick up something from him. And I'm going to also make sure that, what do I notice that I can really extrapolate from my own tying that maybe I didn't even realize I'd done it? And at one point, this will kind of in a roundabout way answer Ben's question. We were making a dubbing loop, and we were putting CDC in our dubbing loop, and we were talking about that. And you could see he was having trouble doing it. And he followed everything I said. He's like, Tim, I'm just not getting this. I'm not sure why mine's not looking like yours in this moment. And I wanted to say, I don't know. You just need to practice more. That's not the answer. And so I guess with going back to Ben, it really forced me to break my tying into not just like the step-by-step procedures, like maybe I would use whenever I'm writing a tutorial or, for YouTube, or whenever I'm even putting a tutorial together for my book, but to really break it down even more than that, and to really examine it and kind of reverse engineer. I think that word gets thrown around occasionally. I don't think I do that enough. And in that moment, I was able to quickly reverse engineer and say, oh, I see what's going on. Like the CDC that you're putting in, you're doing everything well, but your CDC, maybe you're not keeping your butts close to the thread. You're pushing them through too far so that whenever they spin, they're clumping up, and it's not letting those long fibers go. But then I'm also noticing that you're keeping as soon as you put it into your thread, you're tightening your loop versus sliding it up closer to the hooks. So I was able to pull apart 3 things that I did on my own, which there was no thinking. No one had ever told me to do that. I did it. I probably got lucky that I did it, but I had just done it, and it made my flies just look wonderful. And he had missed that component. And I'll never forget, like the moment I started to say it, like he knew right where I was going. He's like, Tim, I get it. And he just stopped, like he respun his dubbing loop. He put it in, he slid it up, and he's like, aha. He's like, I got it. And like that moment for both of us was wonderful, because I was like, this guy's all right tying, this great stuff. And now it just took him to the next level. And it also kind of, I wanted to pat myself on the back, like, oh, it's like when you help somebody who can't cast yet, and you figure out what's going on, what's holding them back to that next level. So I don't know if I answered Ben's question exactly, but that really just niching down is it.
Yeah, I think there's times when it feels like we're preaching to the choir about something, but then you realize, oh, we can both still get something out of this. That's great.
Oh, yeah.
I had a buddy text me, and he wanted to anonymously ask a question. This is the only touchy question in the group, maybe. But he wanted to know your thoughts on some of the old, not like clubs in the sense of like northern clubs where they're all like, oh, this is our beat of land, but more like the conservation kind of clubs. Kind of what your take on that is right now, and how might they attract youth?
That's the $1 million question, I think, for a lot of these clubs. I mean, my take on clubs is they're definitely healthy for fly fishing. There's no question about that. I think you asked 2 questions in there, Matthew. So my take on them, I love them. I've been a part of many of them. I do a lot of, club talks around the country and on Zoom. I try to support them as much as I can. Sometimes it can be difficult too, because as a speaker and as a professional, I charge for my talks, and some clubs, they just can't afford that, which is why I offer Zoom now, so they don't have to pay for my travel, blah, 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 blah. What I've seen happen recently, I've seen a lot of clubs start to adopt hybrid models for their meetings. I think that's helped a lot of them, because what they've realized is when they have these meetings every month or every other month, the same 15 people show up. And out of those 15 people that show up, 5 of them do all the work. I mean, the typical this isn't typical for fly fishing. This is just clubs. Yeah, this is every club. And whenever they start to have these Zoom meetings coming out of the pandemic, they realized that they had club members who wanted to participate or at least be in the know. Maybe they couldn't drive there. Or maybe they moved to another state. They maintain their membership. And it's interesting now, because I'll do these Zoom calls with some of these clubs, and the president will be on. He'll be like, Tim, we had like 50 people show up for your Zoom call. Like, we normally only get 20 people, on a typical club night. If that, in our banquets, we get 35. And he's like, these members are never active, and they're not even from our state anymore. So I guess opening up technology is a really good thing. That's not necessarily for youth. That's just the aspect of clubs.
Sure.
The other thing that I've seen clubs do is partner with other clubs in the same state or in their same region, and have like events. And I think that's something that's also missing with many clubs, it's easy to get in that rut to say, oh, it's September, we're going to meet, and it's October, and we're going to meet, and somebody's going to bring donuts, and we're going to have coffee. And there's a reason to have those meetings. They're important to share information, but there's also something special about an end of the year banquet or an event where you have somebody speak. And it doesn't have to be a professional speaker. It could be somebody from your club that you're like, hey, this guy's doing some really cool streamer fishing. Like, let's have him talk about it. He doesn't have to put together a PowerPoint, or to having a day where you have something like a fundraiser where it's like, everyone throws a couple bucks in and you decide who can make the longest cast. Things, just make it different. Give people a reason to show up and give them something to talk about for the next couple months, because no one talks about the club meeting where everyone showed up and they shared information, they went home. But when something interesting happens like that, that brings people into the fold, and it makes them like say to themselves, like, I don't want to miss the next meeting when we do something like this, because what's going to happen when, Chris does this next time. So that's my opinion on clubs. I think a lot of them are doing it right. I'm lucky in my area. There's a local TU club. That's the largest in the state. And what I've seen them do that I think is really interesting, besides having their standing meetings, they also have like a fly tying night every month on a separate night. They bring in speakers, and they have speakers on a regular basis. They have like a giant trade show, not giant, but they have a pretty formal trade show where they'll bring in speakers for that as well. So they're doing all those big things, but then within their club, they have a bunch of committees, and they have committee chairs, and they have people in charge of that committee. So now imagine like you have like maybe a women's side of things where you have somebody who's, a chair, she's a female, and she's running that side of things. And she's also getting her friends involved. So it's pulling that side of things too. Now let's talk about the youth side, because I think that's the side that people, I think, are unsure about what to do. And I can tell you, teaching 12-year-olds, like I get why it's tough to get those kids interested. My own son, like, he's done more fly fishing. He's caught more trout than most anglers out there. And he would never tell anyone he's a fly fisher. It's just not his thing. He likes to play video games. So I get that side of things. I think people right now, the people like my age and your age and above, well, I think what we're missing out is that these kids want to feel connected. That's why they're so in tune with a lot of their video games and then social media. They feel a connection to that. And one of the main drivers in youth and fly fishing right now is fly fishing competition and fly fishing clubs. And, I know kids who are going to, to colleges right now on scholarships for bass fishing. And it's like, whenever you realize that's going on out there, like there's a driver for that. And these children, these youth want to be involved in this fly fishing competition scene right now. They like it. They catch fish. There's a sense of community there. And I think too many of, my age again and older are like, oh, fly fishing is the quiet sport. It's about solitude. You go out there, it's supposed to be nice and quiet. You leave your phone at home. Like, you're not supposed to have fun. Like I'm saying that completely in jest. I'm the person that people yell at to quiet down when we're fishing. But like, now let's go back to these clubs. Like, do you embrace competition fly fishing as a club? I'm going to bet you don't. Like, so how can you like encourage that? Have you also met with the school district, your local school district? I know, like in my school, I'm very lucky. Like, my principal wants me to run a fly fishing club. She wants me to take kids fishing. She allows me to take a day off 2 or 3 times a year to take my fly fishing club fishing. Like, I get paid to go fishing. Like, that's awesome. We also have a fishing club on our secondary campus. So knowing that we have these clubs, like, that's awesome. Well, we have club events. Like, we need help from those club events. I can't do it by myself. Like, guess who helps out? My local TU. So whenever we have this fishing event where we have all these stations, like you can kind of guess who runs those stations. Like, we call that local TU. They send fly tyers in. Those fly tyers like man these stations, and they teach these students how to tie flies. So that would be that next. I would approach your local school district and say, hey, we have people who want to volunteer. And like, I'll go back to my own personal story. I learned how to tie flies when I was 10 years old, and it was an after school club. And my parents signed me up for it. They said, hey, we're going to sign you up for this club. I'm like, what's fly tying? I didn't know if we were like finding flies on the ground and tying them onto hooks. I had no idea, but that was my connection to fly fishing. That's how I got started. And it's like, now if you got a club, like, can you volunteer your club to say, we're going to go to a school and we're going to inspire some kids to learn how to tie flies or learn how to cast a fly rod. Like, this is not a huge time commitment, but you're going to impact some kiddos for the rest of their lives.
No, that's awesome. So look, take me back there. You're 10 years old.
Yeah.
What did 10-year-old Tim want to do with his life?
Before or after fly tying?
I would say before, yeah.
Man, if I've ever told this publicly, prior to learning about fly tying and that moment where I first started tying flies, I just loved politics. I was this little kiddo that I loved to research the presidents. I had this one teacher, he used to have all the Time magazines with presidents. He had them all displayed around the classroom. And I just would look at those, and I had favorite numbers, and I would memorize which president was which number. And I always said to myself, I would love to grow up and be a president someday. And sometime when I was around that, 10, 11 years old, 12 years old, that's when I started to understand the world of politics, not fully understand it, but I understood it enough to know that depending on, which party you were affiliated with, half the people weren't going to like you. Not that they didn't know you or know anything about you, but because you weren't that party, they immediately weren't going to vote for you. So you were really just focused on finding a way to meet those people in the middle. And I learned that at a young age. And I thought, I don't know if I can handle a life where, I'm doing something and half the people are going to hate me right off the bat. And looking back, I think I made the right decision.
I don't know. We could use some good guys in politics.
I would love to do it. Yeah, I still have a little bit of desire. One of my cousins is actually a mayor of a local town. So I still love I am a political junkie. I love that aspect of things.
Okay. I didn't see that one coming. I did not see that.
No, you're the first one to ever ask that.
I've
never, shared anything about my political views besides with like family and really close friends. But, and I'm not going to here, but
yeah, you said you didn't really. You just said you enjoy politics.
Listen, I know how to walk that line, but yeah, that was the direction I thought my life was going to head. I was going to get into politics or law, one of those two things.
I wanted to be a clown or a trash man, and I think I'm pretty much there. I'm
check it off.
All right, well, we two are different. All right, so all right, let's look at let's just say you've got a couple hours and of free time, and it's just you at the Vice, which this sounds highly unlikely because I don't think you have 2 free hours ever, because of what you do. Are you gonna work through books? You gonna tie old favorites? You just gonna get weird? Set that whole stage. Is there music, coffee? Like is there a ritual there?
I have zero rituals. I have like 12 tying stations in my house. I'm sitting at one of them right now where I have a Vice set up, ready to go. If I had 2 hours, I'm kind of at this stage right now where over the last couple years, you alluded to writing some books. I wrote a couple books on fly tying, and there, as your listeners can guess, there's a lot of work that goes into writing fly tying books, and you have to become very proficient with those 12 or 15 patterns that you're showing step-by-step tutorials. And, I can't tell you how many Paragons over the last 5 years that I fished with, but in preparation for the 12 pictures or the 15 or the 20 pictures of a Paragon, because in every one of my books, every fly is, it's the same hook. There's no Photoshop. It's from picture 1 to picture 25 of that fly. That's it. Like that. It's a sequence. There's nothing. There's no secrets behind that. And I knew, like, anyone who saw that, they knew with macro photography, they're going to see everything, every good thing and every bad thing. And I had to become very proficient with those flies, and my tying had to be very precise, or as precise as it could be for me. Because in my mind, I'm a much better fly angler than I am a fly tyer, but here I am known as in the fly tying world. So looking back on the last few years, like, there's a number of patterns that, I've just dialed in. These are the flies. And it's kind of like my go-to when I'm at a fly fishing show. It's like, oh, I'm going to do a fly tying demonstration. Here's the 5 flies. I can just rattle them off because those are the 5 I've been tying. And if you're telling me I got 2 hours, like, I have like 25 flies rattling around my head that I've never tied, that I'm thinking about. Like we're talking right now, this is being recorded for your listeners back in February of 2026. And we're kind of just getting close to the Lancaster fly fishing show, the last major fly fishing show of the year. And I had a little bit of time over the last couple of days, and I said to myself, I'm going to be teaching a private class, and these are people who are paying a little bit more than everybody else, and they're going to see a fly that no one's seen before. And I'm like, I want to share this new fly with them. So I still have a hook in my vise from yesterday when I was tying. I've been practicing that fly and kind of working through the steps. And it was comical because going with what you said, my ritual yesterday was I had a hot coffee, and I think I had music up that was playing on my phone. I normally don't, but I did yesterday, and I had my laptop set up. Wasn't my notes.
What music? I'm going to go back. What do you listen to, Tim?
I'm more of an old school. I like Pandora, not old school music. Yesterday I was listening to, it wasn't Sum 41. Oh, I wish I could tell you the name of this channel. It's like an alternative channel. Because I love
You're 90s
country.
kid. I think we're about the same age. I'm 47.
Yes, I'm a 90s kid, but it was, I'm blanking on it, but it was that like alternative kind of like a little bit of grunge. It wasn't quite Nirvana, but it was that style of music.
Sure,
it was a little fast paced, not quite Rage Against the Machine fast, but it was in between those two. If that makes sense. I can't tell you the exact. I want to look on my phone. I'm not.
All right, don't worry.
No, I'm not worried. I am, but I'm not. So here I am, like listening to that music, and in my Microsoft Word document for, I give all my students a handout with all the patterns and the recipes, and I'm going through the material list, and I'm like, and I like to keep my material list in the order that I tie it. So, I was in my head, I've been talking about or thinking about this fly for a while. So I put down the materials. I'm like, perfect. Like, oh, this is it. This is going to look awesome. And then I tied it, and I'm like, oh, I don't like that. So I took a razor blade, cut it all off. Then I'm like, I got to change this material. So I went back, grabbed the new material, tied it again. I'm like, ooh, this is looking, I'm close. But then I'm like, something's wrong. And I'm like, oh, it's the order of the material. So I went back, and I probably retied that fly 5 times yesterday so I can get it dialed in. And the sad part is all 5 of them would have caught fish. And fly 1 to 5 fly. The only difference is our fly 5 is, maybe there was a couple material changes and maybe little tweaks that fish would not notice, but the order of the fly, the efficiency of the fly has greatly improved just in those 5, only because I've been tying it so much in my head.
Sure.
So that's what I would do. And you're a tire too. I mean, we're just having a discussion here. What would you do with a couple hours at the vise?
So I started out this year really good doing the daily dozen, where I would sit down and actually tie the same pattern at 12 times. And typically that is not in my wheelhouse because of the ADHD and whatever. But like let's say I was looking at earlier this year, I got that new Pheasant Tail book, Craig Matthews book.
Yeah. How do you like that?
That's good. It's real simple, and that's what I need. So I was working through some of those, and then I dropped off. So when show season started rolling around, I was just like, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts. So we've been on the road real hot, so I've kind of chilled. But yeah, for me, man, I usually will start out with a pattern somebody has, and then my brain goes, but what if we put this in here? And then I just goof around, and then I go, okay, I got to start filling the box with stuff for this year for clients and everything. And it's like just real simple. I just go back to real simple stuff, but I do goof around a little bit, and I'll tie half of them with tails, half of them without, and I kind of think it matters, but let's just play around. So, but I really have a hard time sitting down and cranking out this exact pattern over and over and over. But I did find what you were saying, those days, and I was actually doing my daily dozen. It was like, oh yeah, like by that 10th fly, you're like, oh, these are starting to get like sort of dialed, and I'm seeing, okay, this material needs to lay down this way. So yeah, I'm a work in progress, but I do see that value in doing that repetitive process where you're just going to learn it far better, and the techniques then build upon the next and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah, for sure.
But for Clousers, I'm good.
We all have them dialed in. Oh my gosh. We have them dialed in our way, by the way. You've heard the Bob Clouser stories, right?
Say that one more time.
I said we have them dialed in our way. You've heard the Bob Clouser stories.
Uh,
Oh, these are great. I mean, Bob one time was in the audience and someone was tying a Clouser, the Bob Clouser way, but it wasn't the Bob Clouser way. So Bob raises his hand and says, "Hey, I'm just curious why you do it this way. You don't do it that way." He's like, "Well, because I learned from Bob Clouser. That's why." And Bob's like, "Well, I'm Bob Clouser. I've never tied it that way."
That's amazing.
There'd be nothing worse than tying a Clouser with Bob in the room. Like, there's no way I'd want to do that.
No. That'd be terrible.
Mm.
That would be terrible. So one of my questions later on was to ask you about the book process, and you kind of touched on that. Are you doing the photo work for that?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of alluded to photography and technology and all that stuff. In my YouTube channel, I knew very little about technology. I mean, I like tech. I won't lie. I do enjoy tech. But whenever I first started my YouTube channel years ago, I had like a little camcorder. It had a little remote control so I could zoom in on the fly when I was doing fly tying. And eventually I started doing like tutorials from like the riverside and just, talking head stuff. And I just kept upgrading cameras, and it was mainly just for video quality. Just I could tell my videos weren't as high quality as others. And I just wanted them better quality. And that was about as far as I went. And I never had invested in a macro lens or anything like that. So whenever it came time to write my first book, and I was approached by Stackpole Publishing, by Jay Nichols, I didn't know what I didn't know. And it was like, number one, I didn't know how to write a book. I looked at myself. I was a proficient writer, but I'd never written a book. I didn't know what the process was. And then, I was told I'm going to do my own photography. And he's like, but don't worry, I'll be with you step by step of the way, which he was. It was excellent. But I still have a folder with all of my original pictures from that book, not the ones that made the book, but the ones that were pre the book. And it was just amazing to see, like, I didn't know about lighting because I needed this flash to go off and I needed everything to be perfect. And I had to have the background set to a certain depth of field, and just all those little components had to go right. And then in the meantime, I was in the process of tying a fly, and you had to, like, if you wanted to put CDC in that dubbing loop, like I was sharing earlier, and you breathed on it wrong and all the CDC blew away, like, guess what? You got to start that fly over from step one. Like, so that whole process, the photography was, and I'll be completely honest, I could probably write 5 more books in the next 2 years if I had to, if I didn't have to do the photography, the macro photography. That's the part that just is, wow. Like, you really have to be dialed in. Like, I'm a decent photographer. I'm pretty decent with video work now. And I'm definitely a lot more accomplished at macro photography, but out of the writing, out of photography, out of video work, and out of macro photography, that macro work is easily the most difficult. And whenever you look at it, it's the one that brings the biggest smile on my face, though, because
yeah, there's a lot of work. Like, are you doing focus stacking?
I
You started messing around with that yet?
I did. I didn't think the results were that much better than my
it's a lot of extra.
Yeah.
It was not a thing I ever got into either. I goofed with it some, and I was like, this is too much.
Yeah, it just seemed like a lot of work for not a lot of payoff. Yeah,
especially when you're dealing with something sitting more vertical rather than lengthwise. So okay. So that you're hitting all kinds of my questions. I was going to ask you what other hobbies you have, and it seemed like maybe the photo bug had bitten you. Any other things you're into?
Yeah, I mean, I love to hunt. I live in Western Pennsylvania. So every fall, like traditionally, like this is hunting season. Whenever we hit the fall there, I grew up with a father who had as many hobbies as there were days of the year. Which was wonderful to have him as one of my mentors. And one of the hobbies that stuck with my dad was pointing dogs. And sometime around when I was 13, young teenager, he started getting a whole, I don't know what you want to say. I'm not even sure how many English setters, English pointers just started showing up around the house, and he was running them in field trials. And I was with him every weekend, and we had a blast. And he still has a number of English pointers. That's kind of his dog now that he's moved towards. So he has English pointers. He's actually a national field trial judge. So he'll travel around the country and judge field trials. So growing up as a teenager, I loved chasing, rough grouse. That was it. We would chase them in Pennsylvania. We would go to other states for upland bird hunting. But like, there's a side of me that upland bird hunting is so special. Like, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed pheasants, but most of the pheasants in Pennsylvania were stalked. Same thing with quail, so anytime I had a chance to hunt wild birds, like, that was it. And it wasn't even about, the harvest or the kill of the bird. Like, I was cool just to watch the dog work.
Watch the dogs.
Yeah, to flush the bird, to fire starting gun and move on to the next one. I mean, that's a huge thing. I don't get to do that as often, only because the fall for me now is more steelhead. There's other fish to be caught out there. The one thing that has stuck probably the most is whitetail deer hunting. Like, I love to catch. I love the hunt. I love
one of my favorite questions. Did you catch any deer?
No, I didn't catch any deer.
I've heard that before. Yeah.
I have a fishing brain.
Are you a bow hunter? Rifle? Shotgun?
I love a bow. I bought my son a couple. I shot one whenever I was in high school into college, but I also know that hobby in itself is another addiction, and you don't tiptoe into bow hunting. I know many people can use a crossbow now, and whatever, if that's your thing. To me, I still like the idea of a compound bow, even though I get the idea behind the crossbow. But no, I use a rifle. I use a 270. There's something special about the spots where I like to hunt. I'm one of those hunters where I feel like I almost want to torture myself, where I want to be able to just see the deer for like 4 seconds and have to make a decision if it's a big enough buck or not. Because in Pennsylvania, for they're called wildlife management units, certain units you have to have there's an antler restriction. So it has to be so many points on one side, or else you can't harvest that animal. So in a lot of the spots where I hunt, like, you don't have a chance to count. Like, you just know that was a buck and that was it. You just got to move on from it. So I enjoy that aspect of a hunt. There have been a number of big bucks in the areas where I've targeted over the last few years. I had a big one, how the story goes. I had a really large buck kind of in my sights maybe 2 years ago, and maybe 3 years ago. And it was like, this is the buck. And I literally saw that buck in the morning, and I'm like, well, here comes the rest of the season. I'm hunting this buck. That's it. And then the afternoon goes by, I saw a number of other deer, and that was the fall that my book was due January 1st. One of my books was due. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, I really should be at my house right now. I need to be working on the photography for this book. Like, the writing was pretty much done. I just had to shoot some more of the flies. And I'm like, I got to get this book done by January 1st. I'm not going to finish it. But I just saw that buck. Like, there's the next couple weeks are gone now. Like, that's it. Yeah. Every day when I get home from school, I'm going to be in the woods every week, all weekend long. I'm going to be chasing this. And about 20 minutes later, this mid-sized rack shows up, and I was like, buddy, I am sorry, but you picked the wrong day to show up. Like, that was it. So back to writing the book.
We need meat, and we got to finish the book.
Got to finish the book. Yeah.
And yeah, that is, I've often told people who are coming from fishing into whitetail hunting, I'm like, welcome, now you've played checkers. Welcome to chess. This is a totally different game.
Yes.
Yeah, I got pretty fanatical for a while about whitetail hunting, and I didn't touch a bow or a rifle this whole last season, and then the previous season I think I got 3 days, and then I don't know, man. But several years ago there were about 30 full days a year that I was in the woods. So yeah, I absolutely love whitetail hunting. So anyway.
I mean, you can go back in time. We can talk about that all day. I just love, like,
the
sun first comes up, you hear all those little sounds. Could be a squirrel, could be a deer, could just
squirrel,
birds. Oh man, there's just something magical about being in the woods all day and just stalking those animals.
Yeah. On the way up to the Fly Tying Symposium, I drove all the way across Pennsylvania, and man, I saw some monsters. And that was just so down here, we have dogs down here with horns. So, but we do have I think probably the longest season in the U.S. For a rifle, we can shoot. We have the states divided in South Carolina. States divided into 4 zones. We have one zone that you can actually hunt August 15th through January 1st with a rifle. Yeah,
Oh my
it's
gosh.
crazy. So up here in my unit, we don't get to start until like October, and that's with a bow. So anyway, so you've developed a spectacular travel program. So, like, I'm just in awe, like drooling on your website all the time, looking on that stuff and seeing your pictures.
Thanks. Thank you.
Where are you taking folks this year?
My God. Listen, this is one of those things that a lot of the people I work with, I don't think they don't really know, because I'm always embarrassed. Like, like as a teacher, you're off in the summer. We don't have 3 months. We have like 2 months off, but like we're off for a couple months. And I do most of my travel, most of my hosted trips, especially in the summertime. And I'll never forget, like, I think it was last summer, like I came back and, we're just talking, everyone's like talking, catching up. You haven't seen each other since school let out, and like all the teachers are just hanging out first in service. And somebody was like, Tim, did you go anywhere fun this summer? I'm like, yeah, I did. And I don't want to brag. And they're like, well, where'd you go? Tell us. And I'm like, oh, I was in Montana. They're like, oh my God, you're in Montana. I'm like, yeah, that was like for the first week. Then like the next week I got back, I went to Iceland, and then I came back and I went to the Outer Banks. Then I went to Alaska. Then I came back and I went back to Iceland again. And they're like, no, like, Tim, like I meant like just this summer. I'm like, yeah, that was like the mid-June through like the first week of August. I did all that. Like that was normal summer for me. So I'm very fortunate, I won't lie, for my upcoming trips, because I'm just thinking forward to like what's happening right now. I have, there's some destinations that I always like to go to that are in a rotation now, and then I'm constantly tweaking and adding new trips in, just because, like you said, I put together a program. Originally, I did all this with a good friend of mine. His name's Rob Janino, runs the Fly Fishing Journeys podcast, and Rob and I had a chance to fish some places. And with my YouTube channel, I get invited by a lot of outfitters and a lot of lodges just to come and do some content with them, because that's what I do on the side as well. I help lodges get better at their content, at their social media. So some, outfitters will pay me to come in and give them some pointers and leave them with, a deck of photography and some videos, and make some YouTube videos with them. And they'll say to me at the end, hey, do you want to bring groups here? And typically I say, no, like, I don't think you need me to go to X destination wherever. Like there's I don't see what the incentive is for me to bring a group there. I think most people can do a little DIY on their own. So that never crossed my mind. It just wasn't something I was interested in. And then Rob and I traveled to Iceland, and Iceland was, besides it being spectacular and beautiful, and the fish are just incredible, it's a little difficult because it's European. And things are different in Iceland than they are in the United States. You don't buy a fishing license. Like they sell one government license where you can fish something like 50 lakes around the country. That's it. For every river, it's the European system. Every single river is private. And the only way that you get access is to figure out which outfitter has rights to that river. And if you Google like, I want to go fishing in Iceland, and you're going to be traveling to Iceland, you're like, I want to book a day. What I've realized in Iceland is that, everyone's a guide in Iceland because they know Americans tip, Europeans don't. So they want to book Americans, and they tell everybody, yeah, the fishing's going to be great. Well, it's not always great. And the time that I went over there, the first time, out of the last, I don't know, I think I've made over a dozen trips, maybe 15 trips now. I was over there, and we were just crushing Arctic char. We were having just an incredible week. And one of my buddies was over there as well with his family. And he messaged me. He's like, Tim, I'm over here too. Can you believe it? I'm like, oh, that's great. Like, where are you? And he's telling me, and I said to my outfitter, very reputable outfitter, I'm like, hey, do you know this river? They're like, yeah, it's not a really good river. And I'm like, well, are you catching anything? So we're just sending messages back and forth. And he's like, yeah. He's like, the outfitter said, like, we had the best day ever. He's like, I got 2 Arctic char. And I felt so bad because I'm like, we're catching like 10 every hour. Like, like we were literally slamming them, and they were big, and his were not. And I felt really bad. I didn't have the heart to tell him, like, hey, like, you're not using an actual guide. You're just using somebody who knew how the system works, who bought access. Then you just paid them to take you fishing. So when we got back, Rob said to me, hey, I think we can bring a group over there. And I think it would be beneficial for us to show people around. And and teach them how to fish Iceland, because there is a lot to just even the notion of traveling there. What do you need to get there? Like, what's important to bring? Should you bring gear? Should you pack it? To be a resource for those people. So we started doing it. I've since kind of branched, off onto my own program, but I make 2 or 3 trips. At one point I was making 2 or 3 trips there a year with groups, because people, number one, they want to fish there, and then they get there and they want to learn more about the country and fish other places. So Iceland that's the one constant. Every year I have at least one Iceland trip. Some years it's for Atlantic salmon. Some years it's for Arctic char and brown trout. Some years it's sea run brown trout. Just, it depends. And I plan my trips about 2 years out, so people have an idea of like which trip is most interesting to them. What I started to run into, I had a number of clients who were like, hey, they wanted to fish with me. And maybe I had people who fished on nearly every one of my trips, but they'd say like, hey, like we've done Iceland twice now. Where else can we go, Tim? And I'm like, oh shoot, you want to take another trip with me? So, and they saw my thought process going into it, because I'm really big on experiences that are more remote, that are, a little bit more curated. Like we tend to have like our own chef whenever we take these trips. Like if there's a lodge, I book the entire lodge. I want it to be just my group. So I don't book big groups. Typically it's just, me and 7 other anglers that get together. So my groups tend to be 8 anglers. That's about my go-to number. So the next trip that I integrated was a fly out in Alaska. We fished the Bristol Bay region, the Malchotna River. So I found a lodge there that we flew out to the lodge, and we basically have the whole river to ourselves right around like silver season. Like I'd fished there a couple other times, but they weren't times of the year that I wanted to bring groups. And once I figured out like, oh, this is the time I want to bring a group, then I started bringing groups there. So I do that every other year. Then the next one, a lot of people wanted to go to Montana, and I'm like, you don't need me for Montana. Like, then I started like doing a little bit of research and finding out more about Montana. And, whenever I think about like Montana, I know my own experiences like on the Missouri and the Madison, those big iconic rivers, but I also like can picture like all the boats around, all the anglers. And I'm like, I don't want to bring people into that. Like, so many people told me they didn't want to ever go back to Alaska because they fished like the Kenai and it was just boats all over the place. Like, I'm a wade angler. I like to wade. Like, so the place where I go in Alaska was wade fishing. So I'm like, how can I make Montana different? Well, I found an outfitter that's really thinks different. Like we still fish some of the iconic rivers. Like this trip in June, we're fishing right after runoff. We're going to spend 3 days in the Missouri River. And for those 3 days, like if the flotilla of boats leaves at 8:30 or 9 o'clock, like we're not going to leave at that time. We're going to go at 10 o'clock, and we're going to go to different time than everybody else. We don't want to see all the other boats. We just want to do ourselves when we do float. So our outfitter's not confined to this 9 to 5 schedule like other outfitters, which I'm not bashing other outfitters. That's not their experience. And we'll have our own lodge, like we'll have our own chef. But then after that 3rd day on the Madison or on the Missouri, we're going to switch gears and we're going to head, to a different location, kind of like a more private location, maybe fish some ranches and I don't know, maybe fish a section of the Yellowstone River. Like for instance, there's this one canyon. I think it's the only canyon in the public section. You can fish it. You can drive there. You can fish it from your car or from your vehicle, but you can't float it from a boat. Like because of one very important reason. There's only one spot where you can take the boat in. You can what's the word I'm looking for? The boat launch. There's only one launch that's above this canyon, and they only give 2 permits a year for that launch. The next launch is like 10 miles or 12 miles upriver. You're not going to launch 12 miles to fish this canyon. It just doesn't happen. Well, my outfitter has one of the 2 permits, so it's like the other permit doesn't get used. So finding the right outfitter is just super critical for me. So we're gonna have those options. But now I'm telling you, like, oh, for Montana, like we're going to do this and this and this. The beauty is we don't have to make that decision. Like when we get there, the guides are going to say, these are the ones that are fishing. But after they learn their clients on the Missouri, they're going to say like, oh, I can tell you really want to do small stream fishing, dry fly. We're going to bring you to this section. Whereas this group of 2, like, oh, they like streamer fishing. Like maybe we're going to take you to the Boulder instead, or the Stillwater, and we're going to go to the streamer water. So the trips that I'm bringing now, the groups I'm bringing to Montana, I think the reason that my trips are selling really well is because they know it's not like this is our cookie cutter. You're just going to fit into this.
Right.
It's like if you and your buddy
created an exclusivity. Yeah.
Like we're going to give you that. You're still going to meet back with the group at the end of the day. We're still going to have like a Michelin chef or something of that caliber, but we're going to do that too. So that's my let's see, Montana trip. I'm going to do an Iceland trip to target some Atlantic salmon again. That's going to be an August trip. We're also going to be fishing a special river that my outfitter just got access to called the Litla. It stands for, gosh, the Little River, I think. Don't quote me on that, but it's like it's one of the warmest rivers in Iceland. It's the only river I believe that doesn't freeze in the wintertime. And the size of the fish out of this river just incredible. So we're going to fish that one, and we're going to fish Atlantic salmon. So we're going to kind of go after target some trophy brown trout and trophy Arctic char and Atlantic salmon, which should be just a crazy week. And then I'm starting to, I'm adding new ones. So in the fall, I live in Pennsylvania. We have, the Great Lakes. We have Lake Erie here. So the first weekend in fall, I'm going to be releasing a trip soon to open up for steelhead, aka big rainbow trout out of Lake Erie. The same thing. Like I said to myself, why would I host a trip up there? Well, there's an outfitter who has access private water for the first 4 miles of this one river. So now my groups are going to have these fish as they're freshly coming in. So that type of stuff. In the future, I'm thinking like Italy. So next year, I'm going to start traveling to Italy a little bit more with my wife and fishing there. And there's a couple, guides we're working with now. And I feel like in 2028, maybe 2029, I'll start getting Italy into my rotation, just to, more of a couple style trip. So I'm just trying to think like, the clients that I fish with, what are they after? And how can I integrate that into my own system that makes it enjoyable for me too?
Do you see a lot of couples go?
Yes and no. I mean, some of my trips were not initially designed for couples. Like for instance, the Iceland trip, it's a small lodge. I mean, I told you I rent out the entire lodge. So if there's only, if there's 4 rooms, each room sleeps 2. If your significant other is coming and he or she doesn't fish, well, they're going to pay the same price as everybody else. So that's an area that I've realized is kind of a weakness for my trips. It's a strength and it's a weakness. So I'm trying my best to figure out ways, like if your significant other fishes, like absolutely, like we're good. Because I feel like, it's one thing I love to have solo anglers, and there's a lot of solos who fish on my trips, just because, depending on the time they're available, depending on, their resources and their finances, like sometimes you and your buddy can't fish together. And I get that. But like, for instance, this year, we have a couple coming with us to Montana, and I like our trip right now, it involves like, a couple that's going to be coming, this couple has been traveling to Montana, fishing together themselves for like 20 years. I'm like, they know more about Montana than I do. And they still signed up for my trip, which is just, they're learning, they're pushing themselves. They're interested in how I curated this one. So I'm excited to fish with them because couples bring a different dynamic. There's a grandfather, and he's bringing his grandson with him on this trip. And this guy's name's Ken, the grandfather. He's fished with me in Iceland already. He's fished with me in Alaska. So he knows what to expect on my style trip. So he wants to bring his grandson to experience that as well. So that's going to be cool to have that dynamic. And then we have a couple solo anglers. And then my wife, she's like, I want to go to Montana. So she's going to be my partner. So, just the way that my groups have worked out over the years, this isn't like a party style event, that type of thing. But now, like, I'll also tell you, like, I think another secret is, for my own curation, I also make sure the people who are signing up are the right people. There was a guy who called. We had about an hour-long phone conversation last year, and he was my type of angler. He's like, Tim, I like to fish all day. I want to skip lunch. I don't care if I get back in time for dinner. I want to be the last one off the river. He's like, I'm in, sign me up. And it was for a very expensive trip. And I was like, yeah, just so we're clear, you are not my client. You're not, I didn't say it in these words, but basically you're not allowed to come on my trip. That's not how it works on these trips. This is a group trip. It's about we're going to be a family by the end of that week. We will hold our dinner if someone's running late, but you probably shouldn't be late. If I say appetizers and cocktails start at 6 o'clock, that's when they start. And if you should be in your seat for dinner at 6:45, that's we respect the community. And not to say he wouldn't, but I could just tell from the conversation, I don't think he was going to fit in with the group. He's my type of angler, but that's not how it works on these trips.
For that group, whatever.
Yeah. So I'm lucky that I can tell people this isn't the right experience for you. And, this might be the right outfitter for you, but just not with my group instead. But, because I have, I've been, fishing with these outfitters for years now, I'm able to also reserve the peak week. So like for salmon, like I know I want this week, like this is my week, like, because I know it's going to be excellent for Atlantic salmon that week. So I know we're not going to just, everyone's going to hook a fish that week. Like everyone should land, minimum 3 Atlantic salmon that week. Like whenever we go to Montana, like I'm not going just to fish the Missouri. We're going peak PMD dry fly season on the Missouri. Like, so I really, I'm able to book those peak weeks. And, that's part of the trip experience too. I figure if you're going to spend the money, like, spend it for the best. That's how I look at things.
Absolutely. So, how can folks spend their time stateside getting ready for those trips? Like what's going to make, like, for instance, when I was at Orvis, I specifically remember a guy going to Belize with a bunch of his buddies, and they all came in and bought Helios rods and everything. And then like, he got back and I saw him probably 3 weeks after the trip. And I was like, hey man, how was the trip? And he goes, oh, it was great. I said, man, did you catch a bunch of fish? And he was like, no. He said, I spent about an hour fishing and then I just sat on the boat and drank the whole time.
Oh my God.
I said, are you serious? He goes, yeah, I can't cast. And and we had really been like pushing, like, hey man, you need to really spend some time, like, call us, we'll help you, or whatever. And he just didn't, and so walk us through, like, do you ever see those kind of issues on these trips? And obviously you're vetting these folks and that kind of thing, but what are some ways that they can best prepare themselves for international travel, whether they're going with you or Yellow Dog or whoever?
Yeah. I mean, I will say as you can tell through some of our conversation, I'm pretty intentional about what I do. And for all of my trips, we have 2 Zoom calls. So I get the whole group together. We schedule a Zoom call. Depending on the outfitter, some of the outfitters join in as well, or they'll have a guide that will show up just to answer questions too. Even though I could be the host, if there's nothing, like, the boots on the ground. And I do those for a couple reasons. Like number one, it's also like just to get to know each other, but to really reiterate a few things, because I have a little slideshow that I go through, and in my deck of slides, like there's a couple that are critical. And I think you hit number one, and it's the idea of casting. And I think when people are taking these trips, they're trying to maximize their fishing time, at least the ones that I'm thinking about. Like if you're going to dedicate more than one day whenever you're on, doesn't matter if it's stateside or an international trip, you're spending a lot of money for those trips. You could be spending, more than, a couple $1,000s a day at times on some of these trips. And when you look at it like that, like you got to be fishing. Like that's how you catch fish, period. And, hard stop there. And if your arm is hurting because you can't cast anymore, you're not fishing. And have I seen that? Yeah, for sure. And I can't reiterate enough that, prior to a trip, you have to get proficient with your casting. And so many people take that wrong approach that you just said. They're like, I need to buy a new rod, new fly line. And you might, which by the way, yeah, you might need a new fly rod, or you might need a new fly line for sure. Like that's number one. If there's one thing you're gonna buy when you're traveling, I'll give you 2. Get a very durable and waterproof raincoat and a new fly line. Like those are 2 essentials in my book. And then number 3, go and book some fly casting lessons. Doesn't matter if you've been fishing for 2 years or 20. Like there's nothing better than finding an instructor who's knowledgeable, maybe an FFI instructor who knows, how to help your cast to make sure you're, maybe doing a little less damage to your joints. And just to make it easier for you to double haul, or even to learn what a double haul is. Just those little things can make such a difference. And, kind of like going back to, I wish somebody would have told me, like, if you're hearing me right now, like write this one down. Like, a friend of mine, I'll go to your Belize story. He took the opposite approach, where he was going to an island. He was chasing bonefish, and it was wintertime in Pennsylvania. And he was out every day for 30 minutes, double hauling in the snow and just getting ready for this trip, which now the opposite side of things, he got down there and he literally made like 7 casts. It was just horrible. I don't think he had vetted the trip, and it was a pretty bad outfitter he chose. So, he had expectations where he was going to be fishing all day, and he made like 7 total casts the entire trip. So he had the opposite. He didn't drink either. So it was probably just doubly miserable. So that's, for sure, casting casting is king. You got to do it. There's a guy that I've taken casting lessons off of. His name's Mark Signorino. He's an FFI instructor. He's excellent. And there'll be times where I'll get to the water and I'll still remember some of his little lessons. And I'll still say to myself, like, ooh, I should probably call Mark. Just swallow your pride. Like, it just be like, I don't care who you are. Like, you could, like, Mark gave Tom Rosenbauer lessons at the Virginia Fly Fishing Show last year. Like, you know, if Tom's able to say, hey, I'd like to learn that, you know, that little trick you just did right there, I think we can all kind of take a lesson from that and say, yeah, let's pony up and kind of reinforce our fishing.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see, buddy. I was going to ask you if I was to go to Iceland, do I buy my sweater before, or do I have to buy it there? What's the proper etiquette there? I don't want to offend anybody with my sweater.
Okay. Oh my God, these sweaters are amazing. Are you jealous? Tell me the truth. Are you jealous of my sweaters?
I am, but I'm a little rotund. I don't think those horizontal stripes are going to work for me.
Oh, they'll look beautiful either way. The sweater my newest sweater, I bought in 2 or 3 over the years. So for the listeners, if they don't know what this sweater is, in Iceland, you know, they have all these sheep or lambs that are running all over the place. They're wild. They're not wild. They're domesticated, but they're all over. They're eating all over the place. And at some point in October, they herd them all up and they run them down with like 4x4s. I mean, they're up in like just billy goat spots everywhere. They're all over this country. And then they herd them up, they bring them into cities, and then they slaughter them. And then I don't think they send out a lot of that meat. I feel like it's only, you know, maybe there's a couple countries they trade with, but for the most part, like that Icelandic lamb, oh gosh, there's something about it's completely different than any lamb I've ever had in the United States. It's just, there's a different flavor. It's delicious. There's nothing like it. But to go back to things like when we're talking about the sweaters, this wool that they're using for these sweaters, it is so soft. It's incredible. And I think what happens, a lot of people get to the airport and they get off their flight, they see a sweater for sale and they want to buy it. I'm going to tell you, like, don't buy those sweaters. There are sweaters that are made from the locals, from, you know, wool in those areas, in those different regions. I'm not going to talk about I know any differences in the wool. I don't, but I've heard there's differences. I don't know about that. And there's little shops. There's shops in, you know, the big city of Reykjavik. There's shops up north in Akureyri. There's shops all around that country, but you almost have to ask somebody and say, hey, I'm looking for shops that will have a tag that will have the person's name on that tag who made it. And like the owner of the shop might even know that person. And those are the ones you want. They're a little bit more expensive. You put them on, you have to try them on. Typically that's just like one size. It's just like, they'll be like the same pattern. There'll be like 7 different sizes if you're lucky. And if it's a really pretty pattern, you probably won't find it. It's probably gone by tourist season. And I've lucked into some. The one that I bought this year, I found one that I love the pattern. It was just a cool sweater. It was definitely too large for me. I think I've lost 25 pounds since. So when I put it on this year, I'm going to be just drowning in this thing. So whatever. It's
layers. Remember layers.
Oh my gosh. But it's one of those things. All I wear under it, I have this Under Armour thermal. I wear that under my sweater. That's it. Then I put a raincoat on top. And that's what I fish with in Iceland whenever I'm there. It's just the sweater. And the locals tell you, like, you're not supposed to wash them. You're not supposed to, like, it's unless you, like, they're really filthy. It's just, you just set them out, let them air out, let them dry out from any, you know, perspiration. And that's it. That's literally all I've ever done with these sweaters over the years. My wife, her sweater game it's like the A+ level. She's got like purple ones, gray and purple and yellow. And she's got beautiful sweaters. Me, I'm just more of the basic, like browns, grays, you know, a couple little patterns in here. I'm telling you, you'd look good in one, man.
Oh man. Yeah. I need to go.
Just for that. I'm not going to bring you one back. You can't do that. You got to go and get it yourself.
Yeah. I feel like there's a show called Somebody Feed Phil. Phil Rosenthal. It's fantastic, where he just eats around the world. But I feel like he went there, and I feel like there was a bit on the sweaters there. So anyway,
he probably had their lamb. He had to have had
the
lamb.
Exactly.
How could you not have the lamb?
Tim, where can folks find you online?
Easiest spot, go to my website, troutandfeather.com. everything kind of drives from there. But if you're into social media, you'll find me on all those social media accounts. I love them all.
Yep. Awesome. Well, Tim, this has been super fun. I really appreciate you taking the time to goof off here with me tonight.
Thanks, Matthew. You're a good dude. I was looking forward to this one. I cannot wait to see the rollout of your podcast, since we're not officially there yet. So where am I in the number? How many people have you recorded before me? Where are we?
Basically you're number 2, but number 1 has to get re-recorded. So yeah, right now you're number 1, assuming this happens.
2 on the charts, but number 1 in your hearts. I love that.
Ooh, there you go. I'll put that in there somewhere. That's show notes. Cool. Anything else you want to add to tonight?
No, but for all those people out there that are listening, thanks so much for taking the time to listen. Thanks for hanging out with us. And obviously, if you have any questions, you can reach out. There's a little contact form on my website. It doesn't matter what the question is. It could be fly tying, fly fishing, and travel as well. We didn't get too far down that path, but I really love to help people find their experiences. And I don't want to scare them away when they heard, oh, Tim's going to these destinations. If you have travel questions, or if you're looking for even if you want to be connected with the outfitters that I fish with, let me know. Because the one thing I probably should mention is that my trips tend to sell out within days. And sometimes they don't get announced. They get announced. And then I have a short list of people who ask to be part of the first initial group. And I might, say for Iceland, I had maybe 14 people that said, I want to be in the initial, just talk about it. Send me the initial information whenever I release the trip. And I did. And within I think 4 days, the trip sold out. And I felt really bad, because then people started emailing afterwards or calling me hey, I'm ready to put down my deposit. It was like a very expensive trip. And I was we're sold out. It's just, that's the downside of me planning out 2 years, is that people get ready for these trips, and it almost is turning into a lottery, or a Taylor Swift trying to buy her concert tickets things for my trips, which is you're laughing. I'll be honest. It's one of the worst things that I'm experiencing right now, is to tell people you can't come on the trip with me. And they're like, oh, when are you going again? And it's I'm not going there for another 2 years. And they're like, well, put me on the list. And I have them highlighted, this is the first person who's going to go in 2 years. And it's really, that's one of the most frustrating things of this travel. So for listeners who do want to travel, please at least reach out, and I can connect you with the right groups to get out there. Because there's a lot of outfitters out there, and there's some that I believe are just a little bit better than everybody else. And I'd love to connect people with those.
Yeah. That's that politician in you, hating that rejection. You can't stand it. Listen, guys, this is keeping Tim from doing summer school like the other teachers. So you got to go on these trips.
Matthew, there's this one client, he emails me once a week. Hey, has anyone dropped out of the trip yet? And I have to reply back every time. Nope, it's still full. You're still number 2 on the wait. You're not even number 1 on the wait list. You're number 2. Sorry, because number 1 just called me yesterday. So no, that does eat at me. I mean, I'm about to release a trip. Gosh, I'm trying to think which my next trip I'm releasing. I think I'm releasing my Erie trip to for Steelhead. And it's tricky because my cousins. This is my cousin. I'm not gonna say her name, but her husband emailed me, and he was like, hey, I want to bring the boys on the trip. And I'm like, well, obviously I want to give it to him first. That's 3 spots. And my wife wants to go. That's 4. And I'm going to go. That's 5. Now I only have 3 openings. I have 25 people who have expressed interest in that trip. And I'm like, well, I'm going to, so that does stink. So I will have to deny a lot of people and just say, hey, I'll put you on the list for next year, or figure out, can I get more guides next year? But that's also the tricky part, is you just don't know how these trips go. And for me to say to an outfitter, I need 10 spots, that's a risk on my end to say I need 10 spots. There's this one outfitter, he has 2 smaller houses. Well, I take both the houses. I'm like, well, I'll take them both. Well, I have to put money down for those houses. It's not like he's putting them on hold for me. They're mine now. I have to make sure I have clients that are going to show up for that. So there's kind of a 2-way street for how these trips work. And there's risk on my side as well. I've been lucky that I've been able to sell these trips out over the last number of years.
How much snow is on the ground right there right now?
None. It all melted. We woke up to a few inches. We had a 2-hour delay for school. We got home. everything's gone. So it's been a wonky winter. Someone just told me that they're now calling for like 12 inches here next week. And we've just gone through feet. We've been measuring feet over the last month. So I'm not sure what's going on. I thought we were kind of
I just booked hotels for Spring Creek week before. We're driving across Michigan for the F3T and then over to the PA show. But we were like, let's just stay at Spring Creek for a few days.
Oh my gosh. You
So,
should be good.
We should
Send
still be
them
able to get
a-
out. We'll
got a
find
couple.
somewhere to
Like,
fish.
Listen, if we could survive if we
A
could
week.
survive the Edison show, I think we're gonna
Yeah.
be okay.
Yeah, well, we got to fish this time. All right, man. Well, thank you so much again for your time. Folks, if you're find yourself in the Carolinas, give us a call, 864-816-0506. That will get you, if you ever want to ask a question that we're going to read on the podcast like we did tonight or have you featured on the podcast, you can be on there. Again, that's 864-816-0506. Or you can hit us up at mountyonder.com to book a trip for North Carolina and South Carolina. Trout and bass fishing. So anyway, thanks again, and we will see you guys later.